This is Dale Wetzel. This is the Legislature Today. We are coming to you from the Peacock Alley American Bar and Grill in downtown Bismarck. We have as our guest on the University of Mary Hour, we have Mr. Roger Thomas, who is the athletics director at the University of Mary, has been for 5 years or so. Before that, he's been a coach and athletics director at the University of North Dakota and the grand poobah of the former North Central Conference, which I'm afraid dissolved when several of its members went to Division I. And we've been talking about the athletics programs at the University of Mary. And I wanted to talk to you a moment for Mr. Thomas about, you mentioned a strategic plan that's coming out about athletics. But first of all, I would like to ask you a few more questions about recruiting. I was wondering, when you recruit, do you focus on athletes in the region, or how far afield do you go? And I'd also like to know if you focus on Catholic high schools.
Well, I go back to when I was a coach, and I did it for 30-some years. I coached football at all the levels, small college. I was in the Big Ten for a while and so on. But recruiting is recruiting, and I think you start in your own backyard. I think when I again back at UND or at University of Minnesota, some of the places I've been, you really try to find the top athletes as close to home. They're easier to get. Most of those kids would love to play somewhere locally, regionally, so their families can see them play. So that's generally the first thing you look at, and then you kind of broaden the circle out from there and go as far as you can or have to find as many quality athletes as you can. And it's kind of an amazing process because you're in and out of schools, you're in and out of homes. That's always been interesting to go into a home and figure out read the family as to what they're looking for, if they're asking questions about where their son or daughter is going to go to college, and the athlete, of course, themselves. So that's been a fun process. One of the things Mary's done, back to your Catholic part of the question, Mary has focused on that. I think one of the things as part of the original, talking about strategic plans too, the original strategic plan we had of a few years ago was to increase the Catholic identity of the school. And part of that was, can they find a way to get more Catholic high school students to attend Mary? And so a scholarship program was created to help a graduate of a Catholic high school to go to Mary and get a discounted deal, quite a discount as a matter of fact. And I think it's proven to be a very, very successful program. We have a higher percentage of Catholic students. I think the campus now is a little over half Catholic and not. So there's quite a few students that are not Catholic there as well. And I think one of the other points of the strategic plan, not only to recruit more Catholic high school students, was to recruit just more students and that would enjoy a faith-based kind of school and enjoy that kind of an environment to go to college. And I think one of the things I thought one of the offshoots was, I was talking to Father Monsignor Shea. I'll get used to saying Monsignor here one of these days.
I do the same thing.
But was that when they hold masses and stuff at the school, the kids are almost standing out in the hallway for the chapels that they hold them in, that there's just more interest. And I think part of that might have been because there are students that are coming out of schools that was part of their life as a Catholic high school student. So I think that component is going along real well.
You mentioned there's a new strategic plan coming out on Friday. What are the elements of that, and why is that necessary? Well,
we're starting it on Friday. I shouldn't say we've got it done yet. I think we're going to take the original strategic plan and all the bits and pieces of that for growth, enrollment, sports, housing, new academic programs, online, which is a huge piece of what we do. There's many, many online things. We have some site-based things. Mary teaches classes in Fargo and other places. And the idea starting on Friday is this group of people will sit down and we'll look at the old strategic plan and see how do we beef that up. Did we get something accomplished that is kind of off the table now? Is there other things that we should be working on to enhance the school, get the school to grow over the next 5-10 years?
And what is a strategic plan essentially a series of goals? Is that its purpose?
Well, most of the time it is, yeah. You start out kind of really, really big with the mission and the whole thing that you want to do. Then you break it down. Well, what will help us to accomplish that mission? What would be the pieces of a goal here and there? And then you break it down even further with the plan to say, all right, to reach that goal, what would be the action steps that you'd need to take? And what are those steps? How much would they cost? Who would do it? And when would they get it done? So the really effective ones are they go down that road. They go down to the detail and make it happen. In the schools I've been at before, involved in a few strategic plans. The ineffective ones, they do all that wonderful work, and then they put it in a binder and they set it on the shelf, and you really don't do any of the stuff that was in there. So, pretty interesting.
What are some elements of the existing plan? You mentioned more emphasis on the University of Mary as a Catholic institution and recruiting Catholic students. What are some of the other elements of what you have now?
Well, let me go back to that Catholic one more time. I think it's interesting because the last strategic plan, a little funny thing not funny for me, was Father Shea at that time was sitting there. He was pretty new, and we did the plan, and he said, I'd really like to sit down with the mission of the school, and I'd really love to make this school as Catholic as we can for those that want it that way, and as welcoming for anybody who's a non-Catholic so they would come to the school. And he said, I want to take a look at our mission statement. I mean, you start really, really at the very base of things, and he said, I'm going to get a group of people together to do that. He said, I would like to lead that because that's very important to me as a new president. This is a few years back. And he looked over and he said, Sister Nancy, who runs the monastery down, he said, I'd like you to be on there. And he looked over at me, and I'm sitting there amongst about 20-some people, and he says, and Raj, I'd like you to be on it. So I joked with him. I said, I'm representing all the non-Catholics, but that was my job, was to look at this mission and to do that. So that was one small piece of it, was to redo that. And that was fun. It was actually great for me because it was fun to look at that mission statement and to be with them and to make it a welcoming place for any student. It really is,
What does weather like this do for the spring sports schedule?
Well, awful. I mean, I've never been around a spring like this in all the years I've been doing this. The people I really feel sorry for, I was saying to somebody today, they're the seniors. You lift weights, you meet, you practice, you do all this stuff all year, and for what amounts to be a short season in the spring, if you're a baseball or a softball player or a track athlete, and now you never play. You just work out inside. You're still doing the same things you were doing for the last couple of months in preparation, and you can only hit baseballs in a cage for so long and not actually play the game. So we have really, really struggled, as has the conference. It's not even us. You look over at those big snowstorms of a month ago in Minnesota, we were better off than they were, and there was times when they brought a game that was supposed to be played over there, like in a St. Cloud, and they brought it here, and we played in Bismarck. Well, now we're all in the same mess. So I'm not sure how it's going to be. I think it might affect our championship play, because you need so many games to determine who goes into a postseason tournament for like baseball or softball. Track athletes are trying to run in enough track meets to qualify with times for a regional or a national meet. And we have athletes, as I mentioned, our women's track team in particular is very good and has a chance to win a conference championship and send a lot of these young ladies and some guys to nationals. But they've got to run and jump and do all the things you do in track to get those marks that allow you to go to the national meet. Because kids in other parts of the country are holding their baseball games and their track meets, and they're accumulating the statistics and things that you need to go on at the end of the year.
Is it tougher to recruit spring athletes than fall athletes?
I don't think so, because the athletes here are accustomed to it. So if you were a track athlete at one of the Bismarck high schools, now you're in the same boat as this. Now, that may drive them to go to a college farther away where there's better weather, but I think the kids that grow up here, if you play football in this weather outside or you run track and it's pretty chilly, that's just the way of life. And I think that most of the athletes feel that way.
What are your long-range goals for the University of Mary's athletics program?
Well, probably the biggest thing now is to take each one of our sports. We're kind of raise all the boats kind of thing and see where they're at. We certainly, like I mentioned before, have the premier ones to have a really good football and basketball and volleyball programs. Those are the ones, in all honesty, like this, they get the most media attention. They're in the newspaper. They're the events that we sell the most tickets to and for a revenue stream. And it's just, if you don't have, those teams aren't good, I don't think your school is viewed very highly if you're just not playing well in those sports. So to get those to go would be one thing, but we're committed to have them a broad-based program. I'll give you an example. They keep track of the points that you get for how well your teams finish. So, for instance, if you're going back to a sport, let's say you're in women's basketball. If you finished first in the league, you'd garner the most points. Let's call it 16 points because there's 16 league. You're the number one team. If you're the 16th team, you get 1 point. So they add all those up as you go. Well, at the end of the fall and the winter, of the 16 teams, we were running 6th in the conference. which is a pretty good thing for us. That we're ahead of a number of large state schools and so on. And going into the spring, we were pretty optimistic because we have a pretty good baseball team, pretty good softball team, and a very, very good track team. So we were thinking, where would we finished? I think the highest that Mary has ever finished in the league was 8th, which is, I think, a creditable thing because it proves a point that all of your programs are gaining these points and putting it together in this all-sports kind of championship thing. So we're running 6th, which is the highest we've ever been. After this crazy spring of weather, I hope we can get those points and be up near the top of the conference. Plus, we've got a postgraduate scholarship for one of our athletes. We've got some All-Americans. I mean, the goals are to do all of those things and have the most broad-based, successful athletic program, win some championships, and so on. That's really the goal. And to get them to graduate. We have to produce graduation rates for the NC2A. How many of your student athletes start and finish and graduate? They keep rates, and we're also evaluated on things like that.
How is your job compared to what it was when you started?
It's much the same, probably a little better job than it was at the beginning, because when I came here that many years ago, they were only a couple of years into the Division II transition, and there were many things to do. For example, in your athletic department, we have added staff to do different things. So we didn't have a person in promotions or marketing, for example. Well, what we're trying to do in the Bismarck community is and it's happened, is businesses and people realize that if they wanted to get involved with us, let's say a sponsor at a game, we put their name, their logo, their jingle, whatever it might be, in a program or on an announcement or on a sign in front of somebody. We become a marketing piece, which Mary was not. Back to the Mary College days, it was not that. And so what's changed for us is staffing and just the expanse of the program. Cars, I'm just thinking of things I could mention. We have 3 or 4 car dealers in town who have been really good to us. They allow us to use a car. That lets our coaches go and recruit, and we exchange to them tickets to games. We give them, we have a commercial on TV. We do things to try to promote their car business where they help us. So we've gotten into the business side of athletics, if you want to call it, much more than the school did when it played at the lower level of competition.
What other examples do you have of that sort of involvement in the business side of athletics?
Well, there's lots. I mean, every time we have a game, we do 2 things. One is we do it on the community side. We know that we are going to have the ability, because of radio and TV and so on, we can expose things. We've done a lot of charity work, which then doesn't help us directly money-wise, but it's part of just building the program and being a service to the community. Cancer awareness games and things like that, where we go. A lot of military stuff we've done with Military Ovation. We've tried to do those kinds of things. Our student athletes are working for some Make-A-Wish things for the Make-A-Wish Foundation. So we're involved in all of those things besides promoting a business at a game. It's about that simple. There's times when we do a halftime contest and it's something to do with pizzas or something. You help a business, and more businesses in the community start to see Mary as a viable alternative for their advertising dollars or their promotional dollars, because when you look at it at the end of the year, we have thousands of butts and seats. I mean, that's the deal. And so I don't know if we were perceived that way. We're probably still not perceived that way by some people, but the University of Mary is now playing at a level with the kinds of competition and the things we do exactly like UND and NDSU did before they left this type of league. In fact, we're playing many of the same teams they played: Minnesota Duluth, St. Cloud, Mankato, and Augustana, things like that. So I think that's part of our growth process. That's changed my job. It hasn't made it any harder, but it's just a different, going back to your question about the whole, how this is changing.
Are you as far down that track as you want to be?
No, I wish we were a little further, and that just takes patience and knocking on doors and people going. Some of the banks have been terrific to us. They were some of the first people that got on board, and in all honesty, sometimes when let's say one bank does it, another bank says, well, maybe we should do that too. It looks like that's a good thing. So you're hoping to get one of those base sponsors, people that are into what you're doing, cooperative, like I say, a car dealership or whomever it might be. And it's growing, and we have many more than we've ever had. And there's, of course, when you look at the size of Bismarck and Mandan, there's many more out there that we would love to have be part of what we're doing. And customize it. We always say when we talk to a new sponsor or somebody, what can we do for you? Because selling cars at your place isn't like selling burgers over here. What could we do that would be unique to have fans realize that you're on board with us and to publicize your particular business?
Are you trying to raise the statewide profile of the university as well as the local profile?
Absolutely. I think because we draw students from everywhere, and certainly our base, almost back to recruiting, we get more students out of the Bismarck-Mandan area than any other place. But we've got the focuses of places in Fargo and around. In Minnesota is another one. It's just such a big state with so many students. We'd love to be able to make more inroads, but the competition is tough. You're over there with all the other Catholic schools, St. Thomas, St. John's, and so on, if they're looking at comparable kinds of places. But to raise that image and that, until Minot State joined our league here this past year, we were at that point the only Division II school in the whole state since UND and NDSU left and before Minot joined. So there's a level of student, there's a level of student athlete in particular for us that we would love to attract to the school and get all of those top kids. When the top kids go to other places, whether that's UND or NDSU or some other Division I place, that next level of athlete is ours. That's the one we've got to get because those kids can win for us.
How does sports draw people to the university as students? I mean, how useful are sports teams as a marketing tool for the university?
Well, they are for some schools, and we're trying to grow that at our place. I mean, you see the pictures at the games of the student sections all dressed in the same shirt and all their faces are painted and all that kind of stuff. We have that on a more limited scale, and we would love to create that kind of, for the opponent, hostile environment if we could, so that when they come, and I've had some coaches, having been around this league in this area for a long time, I've had some visiting coaches. One in particular told me one day, we were sitting, he's a men's basketball coach, and we were sitting watching the women's team at his school play, and he was waiting for his turn to play with the men's game. And he looked over at me, he was looking around our gym, he says, I hate playing here. And I thought, that's wonderful.
Yes.
That's a pretty good deal. You want to create that fun in that environment. It goes back to what we were saying with our strategic of Monsignor Shea and everybody else. We're trying to make the University of Mary campus life, and so on, just a place that would be very, very attractive for young people to get a quality education, have a great lifestyle there, and enjoy college sports because it's fun. I mean, there are students I know that go to the very large universities to Duke to go watch the basketball games. That's a factor in that young person going to Duke to go watch basketball because they want to be that fan with the blue face in the second row kind of deal. That's how it works.
The fellow who said he hated playing here, did he say why?
Well, he said it's just small, we don't have one of these grand big arenas and so on, and he just said it's noisy and your fans are screaming at us, and he said sometimes it's hot in here, and so I mean all the things, he was finding every excuse that he could just to say it's a difficult place to go on the road because it's got it's not like home, you know what I mean? And that's what we're hoping for.
I mean, you worked at a public college for a long time, public college is, and now you're at a private college. How is that different?
Well, it's different in a lot of ways. I would say probably the first thing that jumps in my head, I'm in a lot of meetings and you start out with a prayer. I mean, that's how we do business kind of. And that would never happen at one of those places and at a place. Well, and it's just that kind of an environment. I think it's a really good environment for student athletes. You get to know the kids. I think the people that work there's a lot of long-timers at Mary that are teaching and kind of advising and counseling, mentoring kids. There's a sincerity to that I'm not knocking state schools because I love them. I've got all kinds of friends and I worked there a long time. It's just different, and it's got a little different emphasis in just how people are treated and just the environment. I mean, it's just a little different that way than it is at a state school.
You mentioned that you're not Catholic. What are you?
I'm a Baptist. I go up to Century Baptist Church here in town. I'm probably not, I haven't been a Baptist my whole life. I've gone to a number of churches. I've always been a Christian guy, but I like that particular church and the people there, and we're kind of locked in. But, I mean, it's kind of like that for the school. I mean, I think and I even tell that to recruits. They say, well, the parent might ask, well, what's the environment like? I said, well, your son or daughter may not be into anything faith-based now. That's just not part of their life or whatever. But they're going to be up against it. That's going to be part of the mission and identity. And just by being around campus, you're going to see it kind of in action, if you want to call it. And I tell a lot of kids, well, you wait. When you get a little older and if you're not into it now, that's fine. But when you got your own kids and stuff, maybe that would make a little more difference to you. But that's what I'm up to. That's why part of the reason I like working there. I mean, I'm very comfortable in that environment, and I think we're doing some good things for young people.
You mentioned that your meetings open with prayers. Do you ever have to lead the prayer?
Sure, yeah.
Are Baptist prayers different from Catholic
Well,
prayers?
we joke a lot. Because back to Monsignor Shea and our fun kind of joking relationship and everything, he's got that image. I think everybody at those churches that are not Catholic are all standing up and waving their hands in the air, and that's not true of everybody. Some do and some don't. But we have a lot of fun almost teasing back and forth about how we worship, in a sense, and it's kind of fun. I mean, it really is. It's been a good bonding thing.
Do you allow like communion wine in your church?
Yeah, certainly they do. Yeah, they do. They're fine. Yeah.
Outstanding.
Yeah.
I was interested in what you think the next 5 years holds for the university.
Well, I'm excited. As I mentioned, day after tomorrow, we're going to start the strategic plan. And I think we have a new person on board named Greg Vetter. A lot of people in town know him from his banking background. And he's taken a kind of a unique role as the executive vice president. So he is, in a sense, kind of leading the charge for some of these changes, some of the business side, some of the things. I think what it'll do, in my humble opinion, it will free Monsignor Shea to go play president a little bit more and let somebody like an executive vice president, Greg Vetter, help to do things on campus, be an answerable guy, and go to do that, and do the planning and the oversight of some of that. Because the role of a college president today is certainly not to count the coins, if you know what I mean. They got to go out in the public. And Father Shea, Monsignor Shea, is such a great speaker, and I think he wants to get involved more in fundraising. I mean, your business, you read about the legislature with all the oil business and all the money that's flying around North Dakota. How does Mary capitalize on that to grow as an institution and get the money to do the things we've talked about, to build things, to build an athletic baseball field, or to start a new major? Let's do a new major in health sciences and service the people in this area. I think I'm totally in favor of that in this plan to get Monsignor Shea freed up to go and be the face and the voice of a great school like that, and let people hear the message some more.
Are you called upon to do much fundraising yourself?
A little bit, and I think it will increase in the future. That's part of, I think, this strategic plan will reorganize some things, because we've got some pipe dreams in athletics. And I think to have the money to do it, that's part of my job. And I think it will be involved with a number of people for us to go and put more of an emphasis on it. It's a competitive thing out there. You're trying to keep your costs down so students will come. But you've got to raise the money to do some things, because tuition isn't just going to pay all the bills the way the world works. We've got to go find more dollars to make it work.
Is North Dakota, as it is now, a good place to raise money?
I think so. I think obviously it's a place that we're trying to figure out, I think, because of the dramatic changes in such a short period of time. I mean, I think the fundraisers on our campus have kind of reevaluated where they should be going and who they should be talking to, because the old money is still maybe the old money, but there's these new people, there's new businesses, there's new things, and with this kind of growth, I think you have to stay with that and see who is interested in helping higher education. And of course we're different. You talk about the legislature, they spend a lot of time talking about how they're going to help fund the state college system in North Dakota. Well, we're not in that equation, so we're on our own. So that fundraising piece is a critical piece. And I think one other critical piece is just all the online education. That has grown dramatically at UMary over the years, but it's gotten more competitive because more schools are offering online classes, so it's harder to get those students. But it's a financial piece for us.
This is the Legislature Today radio program. We've been talking to Roger Thomas, the athletics director at the University of Mary and a former coach and athletics director at the University of North Dakota. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
My name is Dale Wetzel. This is the Legislature Today radio program, and we will hopefully have you tune in tomorrow night.